Good morning, everybody. It's so great to see everybody here this morning. Everybody feeling pretty good this morning? All right, fantastic. We're not too hungover from last night's enjoyable party. Thanks so much to Work Brew for buying us all drinks last night. Deeply appreciate that. Yes, you can clap. You should clap for Work Brew. So good morning, everybody. My name is Tom Bridge. I'm the CTO for IMP Productions in Washington, D.C. We rep the lovely 930 Club as well as our other venues. I'm here today to talk a little bit about human-centric IT systems, which is a big fancy way of saying computers are for people and so we should use them like people do. And so the first version of this talk had a funny, subtitle, because I like a funny subtitle. Who do you serve? And then I thought a little bit more about, where do we go from there? And I started thinking about, what are we even doing here if we are making computers for computers' sake? We shouldn't be. We should be making them for our own utilization. We should be making them for our team's utilizations. We should be focusing on the human systems that we provide. So I ended up landing here. IT systems are for people. You people, them people, all the people. It's really about all of those things. And so, hi, I'm Tom Bridge. We talked last year, and I was working for someone else. I was the director of product management for devices at JumpCloud. And since then, some things have changed. Last fall, I made a change. I made a conscious decision to walk away from my colleagues at JumpCloud and proceed to a life that was a little bit more interesting in terms of rock and roll, because I had an opportunity that I could not say no to. And when an opportunity like that presents itself, you take it. I went back to my favorite client where I had been a consultant, and now I had a chance to, where we built the anthem originally. And now I do this for a living. Actually, I don't do that for a living. I'm on the other side of the camera now for a living. But here at IMP, we have the 930 Club, which is a 1,200-person standing room only venue. We also have Atlantis, which is 500 seats, standing room only. Lincoln Theater is about 1,200 seated. We also have the Anthem, which is 3,000 to 6,000, depending on configuration. And Meriwether Post Pavilion, which is about 4,000 underneath the shell and then 16,000 to 20,000 on the lawn for about 20,000. And so my day-to-day is here and here. So what do human systems look like when you've got 20,000 humans you have to care for in the moment? So the first thing I want you to take away from today's talk is there is no right way to do this. Which means there's no prescription I can write you that will tell you how to make human systems for your environment, or how to embrace your company's values in human systems that you apply and manage through your IT systems. There's no one right path. I cannot say, go out there and buy all of the solutions that are available to you in the conference hall, and you will have a solution that is human-centric. So because there is no right way to do this, you may think that there are all the right ways to do this. From experience, I can, however, tell you there are lots of ways to do this wrong. I know because I've done many of them. So have all of you, I'm sure. Before we talk about the challenges that we're getting to, and I'm just realizing there are all sorts of ducks up here. So there are at least 2 yellow ducks up here that I'm going to need you to come take as soon as I'm done talking, because we need to empty out that ball machine out there. Anyway, that's a different story. We have to talk about the challenge that we exist in terms of non-revenue life. IT systems, in all likelihood, do not generate money for your company. They generate facility for your staff. They generate that facility in terms of opportunity for them to turn that experience into revenue for your company. Chances are your organization sees you as a cost line item and not necessarily as a resource line item or a force multiplier. And For a long time, that stress has been front and center, especially over the last 5 years, I would say, in our organizations. We've seen all kinds of cutbacks in tech startups and in businesses of all sizes. And a lot of those cutbacks aren't happening in the revenue-generating part of the bottom line. They're happening in the expense part of the bottom line, of which we are one. Short-sighted businesses will often minimize their IT spend to reduce their costs, not recognizing what they're doing is costing themselves in resourcing, in force multiplier, and in productivity within their organizations. With that all said, it's critical for IT to show that their own efforts are that resourcing that is the force multiplier side of the business. That you, as a personnel, are supporting 100 or 200 people in their efforts, or more in some cases, to generate business for the company. Every last person in your service organization, because of that fact, has to understand the business that they support. Here at IMP, what we do is we put on rock concerts. It's pretty rad. I'm not going to lie, it's pretty rad. When we're there to put on those rock concerts, what we're there to do is sell tickets, sell concessions, provide a really good opportunity, and make people happy. That's what we're there to do more than anything else. We're there to make people welcome in our spaces, to make them have a good time so that they tell their friends and that they come back next time. It's really, really important that they have a good time at our venues, that they're there to see the band that they like, that they can find the beer that they want or the liquor that they want, that they can buy a cool t-shirt that they think is really great, and that they have an easy time getting in and out of the venue. That money that comes in pays for security, production, marketing, roadies, lighting directors, audio and sound equipment, and the bartenders, the barbacks, and the box office staff. Me. What does this world look like practicality-wise for IT folks? I'm going to start by telling you a story. On October 12th, 2017, the Foo Fighters were going to open the Anthem. The Anthem is part of a massive $2.4 billion development along the southwest waterfront in Washington, D.C. They leveled 8 blocks of waterfront that used to be warehouses and fish markets and turned it into luxury apartments, hotels, a beautiful concert venue, a rum distillery, of all things, and a bunch of other things that were now a tourist attraction and a business center for the southwest of DC. When we built the venue, we were working with the construction of the entire rest of the wharf, and all of the businesses opened the same day, October 12th, 2017. We had planned for years for all of this to be ready. The network that we built to support the Anthem had the concept of public Wi-Fi included, but it was one of those things where, like, is anybody going to actually use that at the venue? I mean, everybody's on their cell phones these days, and so they'll just use their data from their cell phone package. Well, the nice thing about the Anthem is that it's surrounded on all sides by an apartment building. And if you've ever lived next door to a music venue or within blocks of it, sometimes you can hear that music venue. We weren't allowed to be heard outside because the apartments above and around the venue itself were quite pricey, and the people who pay the rent in the quite pricey apartments don't want to hear our noise. And so as a result, 20 centimeters of concrete, 8 centimeters of acoustic batting, 20 centimeters of concrete. Dan, do you have any idea how many decibels of cellular loss that is? It's large. I think that our best guess was that it was 40 decibels of signal loss, which was fine when we were thinking, okay, cool, our Wi-Fi won't be visible outside the venue. Small problem. Cellular service couldn't get inside. They had planned for that. There was a DAS, a directed antenna system for the cellular networks. Again, they built a beautiful network. Lawyers got involved, and then the contracts got delayed. And so as a result, T-Mobile, which at the time in the United States was about 5% of the market, was the only carrier that was live on the DAS. And so that meant that 95% of our audience would walk inside of the building, pull out their cell phone, and it would be like, pew. Now, this is not normally a big deal, right? Except we knew our audience for the Foo Fighters skewed older. The data in our environment told us that the average age of the ticket holder for that show was someplace between 37 and 48. Skewed male, fair amount of female in the audience. It was about 55-45. What would be the effect on a 38 to 45-year-old person who walked inside the building? Their cell phone would turn off. How many of those people have brought their kids to the show? 0. People don't bring little kids to the rock concerts. They should, but they don't. So, as a result, what was going to happen as soon as they walked inside, they were going to look at their cell phone. Their cell phone was going to have no signal. They're going to be like, shit, the babysitter can't talk to me if there's a problem at home. And so they would probably start to feel a little bit antsy, probably about hour 2. I don't know, about hour 1 if you're me, hour 3 or 5 if you're my wife. But, I think the challenge that we felt was that people would no longer feel welcome at our venue. They'd be nervous. They would not be going to the bar for that third drink. They would definitely not be buying the extra rock concert poster or t-shirt. And so we started to think about it from the perspective of, look at all these people who are going to be freaked out instead of having a great time seeing their favorite band. And so we started to think, well, what would happen if we turned on the Wi-Fi for everybody? We'd done the math. We figured that we probably had enough APs. We figured discounting the 5% of T-Mobile users and figuring that 40% of our audience was probably the kid-having type within the appropriate age range, and uptake would probably be about half across the organization. We did the math. We're starting to think, do we have the right things to need for these people in order to be welcome at our venue? The answer was, flip it on. We'll deal with it. Sure enough, we had to expand our DHCP range because as it turns out, a /23 is not big enough. As it turns out, a /22 is not big enough. We had to go all the way down to a /21. That was 4,000 addresses, give or take. We used most of them that night. But those were all people who were going to freak out, not all of them, some of them, were going to freak out and have less of a fun time at this new state-of-the-art venue that they probably had camped out for tickets for or paid entirely too much money on the secondary market for. Please don't buy tickets from scalpers. That's the other message I'm going to bring with you today. Neither the venue nor the artist benefits from those tickets. That's just the scalper who takes that money. Not cool. We built enough capacity, but this whole process taught us something. That experience was invisible. Who here has heard this phrase? Who here sees this as a huge value within your organization, that good IT is invisible in your organization? I see some hands out there. It should just work. No one should ever know that I'm there. If this statement is true, put your hand up. The only times many of my coworkers may interact with me is if something has gone wrong. That's a lot of hands, friends. That's a lot of hands. Systems that operate smoothly and blend into the background become systems that are taken for granted. And you may be spending all of that time behind the scenes caring for and nurturing that environment, but people don't see those nurturing actions. They only see you when things have gone wrong. The ADE workflows that we build are a perfect example of that. We make a perfect, custom-tailored experience that an end user can pull out of a brand new shrink-wrapped box, and suddenly they are part of your organization, and they never talk to IT. That can be an incredible force multiplier for you because you don't have to touch their machine. That can also mean that you are not seen by your colleagues. And I think what's important here is this message. Invisible things often face cuts and shortages. Invisible things that cost money, doubly so. Who here feels underappreciated in their job? That's less hands than I was expecting. Good job, everybody. Human-facing systems oftentimes need visible champions in your organizations. They need people who are going to go out and express to the community that you work for, what it is that you do, what you bring to the table. Otherwise, they just see you as a cost line item and not the human department that's powering the major impact of your new operations. So, as part of this, and here I'm going to use my least two favorite words in the English language because they're often the domain of chicanery and, let's say, paid consultants, which is to say thought leadership. I don't like those words, but they need to be part of our lexicon. They need to be part of how we talk to our colleagues. There's a real value in being an explainer and a helper within your organization that talks about why you build the things you build, why you do the things that you do, and why they matter to literally everybody in the room. IT has to be those people if we want to make it through the cuts that are coming from AI, from other things, for productivity. You have to be part of the culture that helps lift up the organization and support it, especially if there are going to be fewer of you. Picking your audience, of course, matters, and making sure that you're visible to the right audience is a critical component of IT's success here in the third decade of the 21st century. So we'll go back to this for a second. Systems that we use that are frictionless, that are structurally useful, that are invisible to the end user, get taken for granted. So from that perspective, I'm going to ask you to take this message away most importantly. Good IT cannot and should not be totally invisible. You have to be visible at the right time. You have to be visible when your people need you. You have to be visible when folks are doing work inside your organization that you have propped up. You cannot and should not be totally invisible in your environment. So, for a second, I want to talk about another piece of this. Nothing ruins your day quite like running into a problem in your work environment. Whether that's accidentally having spilled some water on your laptop, hopefully it's water. Hopefully it's not that soy latte that happened last week to a colleague of mine. It sometimes can be a really easy question. Can I get a computer that works, please? And sometimes it's a hard question. Who can give me access to this critical system or this important document? Or it's even worse. You know, this computer is 7 years old, and how do I've kept it for so long because it was my, emotional support MacBook Pro. Now it needs to be replaced, and we're out of budget, and, I've been keeping this for so long, but it's not reserved for me. Running into friction in your environment means experiencing problems at work in a way that affects your experience on a day-to-day basis. It may affect your deadlines. It may affect your revenue goals. It may affect all of those things, and you have to be part of that solution as IT. Think about it from the perspective of being on the receiving end of that problem. What's the solution for that? If you're putting in a ticket and hoping to hear back, there's got to be a way to escalate that. There's got to be a way to see yourself in the queue. There's got to be a way so that people can see these environments. It's why we have tools like Slack at work that are like polysynchronous, right? Like we have polysynchronous communication at work, which means that it can be asynchronous or it can be synchronous. But the choices that we make in those systems determine the experience that the other sides have. We don't just pack it in when it gets tricky, though, do we? IT folks are resilient. We teach ourselves things all the time. Who in this room studied how to be a Mac admin at university? Not a hand in the room. We were not trained for this. We were brought up and we had to live and experience it. There is a whole process of the resiliency that we teach ourselves as admins. That resiliency is reflected in the systems that we build. And as a result, because we want to have that great service experience, they become invisible and seek into the background. Having good opportunities and being able to report it on what it is that you have done on behalf of your organization, showing that you are part of the business goals, gives you visibility at the senior leadership level that says, this is critically important to my enterprise. So, from that perspective, I give you this value. End user friction is death. And so when you have to think about it from the perspective of your colleagues that you're working with, who you are enabling, you have to build systems with appropriate friction, because you don't want them just, seeking hand-holding at every possible opportunity. Sometimes it's nice to give your coworkers a little bit of time to see if they can fix their own problems and report back. And one of the things that I think is valuable is having a little bit of a delay built into your system to give people a chance to self-remediate, because a lot of people will try and solve their own problems, especially if you enable them in their ability to do so. Last but not least, I also do want to talk about accountability, because every organization requires accountability. Accountability is responsibility for the work that we do. Accountability says that I am going to take the resource that my company has provided through me and express it to my community responsibly, accurately, and in a forward-thinking manner that gives you the ability to say, I am a steward of this organization's functionality, and I am here to provide those resources out to the broader environment in a clear way. So if we think about what human-centric IT is, it comes down to three big buckets, and they're big buckets. You have to know your business. Who here knows how their business makes money? More hands than I thought. Great. You've got a pretty good understanding of what it is that your business does. You cannot operate a good IT department without knowing how the business makes money. You have to know where the revenue-generating parts of your company are. You have to know where the expenses are that are offset by that. And you have to figure out what that means for your environment and your department. The other piece that you have to figure out is you have to know your people. And I think what it's really important that you have to know about your people is what is their skill level? What is their ability to accept disruption? What is their ability to accept new technology? What is their capacity for growth? What is the company's capacity for ramp up? What is your capacity for supporting that ramp up? You have to be part of that environment, and you have to know all of those things together. So if you know your business and you know your people, the last one is the most important. You have to build for your people and your business, not some other group of people that you might wish you had instead, and not some other business that you might wish you had instead. We are out of the zero interest rate phenomenon. Interest rate in the United States, I think, is some 4 to 5% right now. I think it's about the same here. That means the cost of borrowing money to take on new efforts has to be repaid at a greater percentage of growth than it would otherwise. That means your budget is affected at the same time. All right. So I'm not here to tell you to go get an MBA. If you want one, go get it, but I'm not here to tell you that's a requirement to be an IT leader. I'm saying it may help you. I am here to tell you that you need to know what's tactically important to your business right now. Hopefully, leadership inside your business is telling you what's important about what the company's growth is going to look like and what will enable them to meet their goals. If you are not having those conversations on a broad level inside your organization about the mission of your company, start asking questions. Maybe update the resume too, just for funsies. It's good to have an updated CV, I'm told. Knowing your business comes in many forms. And understanding how your business is organized is a great way to look at those kind of things. Who here listens to Decoder, the Verge, Nilay Patel's podcast about business? It's a really great show. It's about org charts. You would think that that would be the dumbest podcast in the world and you would never learn a thing. You'd be really surprised. It's a lot of fun. It's a good show. You should go put it in your podcatcher. It's great. Mostly because Nilay Patel doesn't accept corporate doublespeak as an answer. My favorite one was when he grilled into it, and the CEO got so mad, and the PR folks got so mad they wanted to can the episode, and they were like, well, you can't make us do that. You signed a contract. So it was pretty great. It's really important that you're professionally curious, not just about your business, but about the people you serve and the people you work with on a day-to-day basis. If you are only visible to your coworkers when something bad has happened, they will start to associate seeing you with bad things. That's just how people work. That's how pattern recognition exists. We fight back against that. And, I think it's really important for IT to be visible constantly throughout the good times, as well as being front and center and ready to fight back during the bad. The other important thing here, and this seems like an obvious statement, but you'd be shocked at how often it is not, that you need to align your team's goals to the company goals. Your team supports those goals. Your team can say, I want to build X so that we can do Y, which enables company goal Z. You have to start thinking about that. For the same reason you have to know your business, you have to know the people that are in it. And knowing the social structure of the business and where the power centers are within your organization is incredibly important. A lot of organizations have cultural competency centers in some key areas. Sometimes that's HR, sometimes it's not. Sometimes that's finance, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's IT, sometimes it's not. Knowing where your power centers are shows you who your allies are. Within a business, to get programs done, you cannot work purely in a vacuum. You cannot work purely within IT, and the work that you do in IT has to spread beyond its borders. Communicating clearly is a core virtue of these kind of systems. And it's your relationships within the organization that make it valuable and make you valuable within your organization. You have to take this one show at a time. You have to take this one project at a time, and you have to pause at the end, and you have to revisit what went well, what didn't, and you have to get ready for the next show. We do 750 shows a year, which is a lot for 5 venues. This weekend, there are 7 shows on Saturday. We only have 5 venues. There are 7 shows on Saturday. And the way that that works is that our teams take it one show at a time. You figure out where everything fits together. You know what the production schedule is. You know what the run of show is. You know how quickly you need to move people off of stage at the end of the night, clear people out of the venue after the first show, and set for the second. It's oftentimes a DJ set on the second show, which means there's not a double load in, which means there's actually proper capacity at the club. We don't have to hurry people right out because we've got external security at most of the venues. So before they've even entered the venue, they're cleared and their driver's license has been checked and everything looks good. But you have to communicate clearly to make those timelines work. So what do I mean by clearly? As it happens, when I came back, this was still on the iMac in the manager's office at 9:30. We had a tool that powered some of the screens, and it was called Media Express, and the owner would get very upset if the screens were not showing the right thing at the right time, and he happened to be in the venue. And so I had a good conversation with the GM, and I said, Ed, what do I need to put on the screen so that we make sure that this always happens? And he was like, don't worry, I got you covered. I didn't have to write that message. Ed knew what to say to his people. Now, I was a little disturbed that it had stayed up there in the 3.5 years that I was gone And I had a good long laugh with Ed about it later. He was like, yeah, we kept thinking about taking it down, but the idea of you coming back from the dead was kind of frightening in a way. And so that we felt that terror would have extra consequences. He will come back and kick your ass, even if he doesn't work here anymore. So recently we just went through the process of moving from Zimbra. Yes, in the year of our Beyonce 2025, we were still using Zimbra for mail, to using Google Workspace. And we had to talk with our people about how that process worked. So we designed a great email. Does anybody read email anymore? We sent this email, but the other thing that we had to do was post flyers. We literally posted flyers with QR codes that would take you to the training video on how to set up your phone. We posted flyers in the kitchens and in the offices of all of the venues. We sent email. We put this in departmental meeting notes. We put this in rundowns for the security team when we would do the security team rundown for the month. We had to talk about this process so much, and we still had 15 people out of 250 who were like, what? 5 days after we completed the migration. They were like, oh, yeah, I was supposed to do can you reset my password? Yes, no problem. Gotcha. But it comes down to building for company and people. And more than that, building for your company and your people. You cannot build for a company you don't have. You cannot build tools for people who will not use them because they are not relevant to their lives. You could spend all of the time in the world making the most complicated, beautiful, incredible workflow, and if nobody's there to pay attention to it, you have wasted their time and money. This is my roadmap right now. You can't read, I guess you can read it up on that screen. It looked really tiny on my laptop. But here you can see all of the things that we're trying to get done over the next, 18 to 24 months. Red things are urgent, orange less so, yellow priorities are normal, because, who doesn't work in a world where things are quasi-emergent, and that's, kind of a medium-level problem. Greens and blues are nice to haves and will hopefully dovetail into future efforts. Each column represents a place or a department. This is the result of a month-long listening tour that I did with every department head. I went to so many meetings. And I met with so many people, and my simple question is, what works good, what sucks? That was the entire version of the conversation, and then it was, tell me everything. Because you have to start from that perspective, and we intend to do this on a semi-annual basis going forward. What works good, what sucks? Because you have to be there to listen to your people about what they need, and you have to be willing to change your roadmap to affect those things as part of that process. You have to divide your time between the tactical and the strategic as part of IT processes. And you have to be willing to forego the sleek and shiny for the functional. Because at the end of the day, you've just got to make it work. And that may mean you're a little bit more visible than you'd like and a little bit out in front rather than you'd like instead of back in your office. With regrets, this is a people job, even if it is caring for the computers, even if it is being a sentient machine therapist in a lot of ways. This is a pile of fake IDs that were in the manager's office at 9:30 the other day. I understand this is about a month's worth. We run an all-ages venue, but in order to drink, you've got to show ID, and there are no exceptions. You must have ID in order to drink. Doesn't matter if you're old like me or you look as young as Dan does. But you've got to have ID, and in every IT organization, there's that security voice that's out there that's saying, we need 4 forms of ID. We need your passport. We need your birth certificate. We need all of those things to prove who you are, that you say you are. Is that a great user experience for the person just walking into the venue? You get to be part of that discussion and that process. And every one of these IDs that were checked at the door and were clearly fake, The risk to the organization is substantial, right? Underage drinking in the States is a pretty decent fine, and you run the risk of losing your liquor license. What did we talk about as the source of revenue for the IMP empire? Well, it's tickets. And guess who gets most of the ticket money? The artist, as they should, because that's who you're there to see. The beer's where we make the money. We have to protect our liquor license like it's the safe in the back of the office. So every one of these is an incident report. Every one of these is a security exam. And every one of these that exists in your environment is a chance for you to talk about what is the user experience and what went well and what went poorly. So I want to talk about incident reporting for a second, reflecting the values in your accountability section. And I'm going to have to hurry. Building trust in your organization requires candor and honesty, even when it's painful. The best way to show your people around you that you care about the job that it is you do is to tell the full and honest truth, every time. And when something goes awry, you've got to deal with that. And that means having a public root cause analysis for outages and for problems. Now, it doesn't have to be the full detail. You're welcome to have private ones too, because maybe you don't want someone to know, oh, by the way, the intern tripped over an internet cord that happened to go to May East, and now your venue's offline. Well, the cable wasn't properly secured. Maybe you don't need to say that. Maybe in the public version of the root cause analysis, a hardware issue occurred when a cable was disconnected. That is true and accurate, but it doesn't get to the point about how you deal with that. You need to pay attention to what happened rather than who caused it, because the what is what caused your organization to suffer, not the who, unless we're talking about malicious compliance or malicious interaction. You need to talk about what went right during the process, as well as what went wrong. And you got to talk about where you got lucky, because in every one of those incidents, something happened where you got lucky, and that's an area of improvement. Last but not least, you need to make changes after incidents, if necessary. You have to be willing to compromise your roadmap to respond to those situations. So why do human systems matter? For the same reasons that humans still matter in your environment. If we just wanted to turn this all over to the machines, we could, but that's bullshit, and we should not do that. So I'm going to come back to my message. There's no one right way to do this, but there are a lot of ways to do this wrong. And the values that you take into environments come with this next caveat. No policy is forever, and the best time to start making things better is right now. And so being aware of what these good guidelines are for making human-centric IT, it's really how to win friends and influence coworkers. You need to focus on sane defaults. Who went to Ulrich's talk about security restrictions on devices? It was awesome. Watch the video later if you didn't make it. Sane defaults matter. Sane defaults are good human-centric IT. Don't interfere more than you have to. I kind of do wish that we got manage once back. That's my dream. Fill out feedback. You also have to push back on security theater, because that's what the risk register is for. You are free to push back against security when you find it to be onerous, when you find it to be unnecessary. It is your job to protect the human systems that you are the face of. Then I need you to focus on employee choice for device behavior. Yes, in an all-Mac institution, you should be able to support Windows 2. Those words feel weird coming out of my mouth, but they make sense to me. You also need to provide self-service and independence as a company value, where it's practical. Obviously, don't let people install random stuff that they found on the internet that's unsigned, like the bank that encouraged me to install some unsigned software as recently as 2 weeks ago to power the check scanner on the CFO's desk. The answer is no, even when it's your bank, especially when it's your bank. We have a new bank now, as it happens. The other thing that I want you to practice is the following phrase. Yes, and, because the answer ought to be yes, and. The answer, if you like what they're going towards, you may want to riff on that for a minute and say, yes, I will get you a new laptop, and we're going to talk about how it's going to come out of next year's budget, and we're going to talk a little bit about the fact that your hardware cycle is a little ridiculous and there's no such thing as an emotional support MacBook Pro, no matter what you told me. The other option is saying no, but I do want to commit to helping you solve that problem. If you think that the solution is dangerous, say no, but I hear your problem. Find the problem and solve the problem. Don't necessarily just accept their solution. No, but, yes, and. This is the most important. Serve your people first. The people you help remember you. That's why I'm here. Last but not least, build toward business goals, not imaginary best practices. Don't worry, these slides will all be available later. So they'll be up on my blog this afternoon. All right. Last but not least, and this is the one I'm asking you to do a scary thing. I need you to be more visible in your organizations. I need you to not build systems that are invisible to your peers. IT systems matter because they're here to protect the people that use them. If they do not see you, they do not understand your protection. So focus on that. All right. Who here saw this business on the streets of Brighton recently? I thought this was great. All right, tattoo. You can't see it because I screwed up the perspective, but that tattoo gets a little smaller to the right. It's great. I don't want you to have all right IT. I want you to have great IT. I want you to have great IT because it makes your business great, makes your business valuable, makes your team respected and more valuable. You get paid better too, as it turns out. These are good things. I don't want to see the all right tattoo version of IT be a prevalent concept, and it is far too often a prevalent concept. All right, before I go, I have one favor. Take out your phones, scan the QR code. Tell me how you became a Mac admin. At the foundation, we're doing a lot of research right now, and this is the first attempt, and we literally thought about this. This is the last slide that came in, we were thinking we need to know where the barriers to entry are, and that means we need to find out how you got in, and we need to find out some questions from you. Please fill this out. We'll be linking to this other places, but it would help me a lot personally if you would fill out this survey, and I deeply appreciate you. Thank you, everybody. So before I go, I have one last message. Please support your independent venues. Go to the show. Go to the show. The Ticketmaster folks are doing fine. Live Nation's doing fine, but go see a show. It doesn't matter if you know who the band is. Go out and see somebody doing something amazing. Think about what it means and have a great time. So support your independent venues. And if you're ever in DC, it would be my honor to give you a tour and get you a show at 9:30 or Atlantis or Anthem or any place else that we have a venue in DC. Hospitality is our business, and our people matter, and you matter. So I want to say thank you so much. Sorry for running a few minutes over, and it's been a pleasure.